yours.
Thank you, Magda. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from Mumbai. I'm actually in Mumbai, the birthplace of AflaTot, and I'm really happy and honored to speak with you today. Let me start sharing my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on this special presentation on the evidence of AflaTot. And as you know, AflaTot we call Early Childhood Education for Sustainable Development. And I know that everybody knows what sustainable development means, but I do want to take you through a quick process. But here's the outline of the presentation. I will briefly touch on sustainable development. I will say a few words about early childhood education for sustainable development, the way AflaTot is implemented, something about the learning frameworks behind AflaTot, and then I will share with you, and that's the main part of the presentation, the review of the evidence. And I also would like to conclude on some of the key characteristics of good programs which we found of this review. To start off with is sorry, I have something in my screen which is in the front of there. Sustainable development. You all know this. This is a concept which existed way before the Sustainable Development Goals were identified. But sustainable development is a lifestyle today that ensures a better tomorrow by satisfying current needs without jeopardizing those of future generations. And I'm really highlighting this because the 3 dimensions of sustainable development are also the 3 dimensions of the AflaTot curriculum. It's really about the environment, social development, and the economy. And together they are vital for the future well-being, as well as for the present of humanity. And this was already a concept when many of you were taught yourself. They are, of course, very much interconnected, but taking them apart, just a few reflections on the different concepts of the social, the environmental, and the economic element. It's important, first of all, on the social side, I think there is no doubt about the importance of early childhood education, and specifically the positive impact early childhood education programming can have on the social side is well documented in most countries in the world. Currently, there is an enormous interest and focus on the environmental side on early childhood education. Having said that, there is much less research done on the evidence of the intervention on environmental education in preschool education. And then thirdly, the economic side, the financial education. And I do want to reflect on that for 1 minute for the few skeptics around you who still think financial education at preschool. There is an increasing evidence around the world, not only from the United States, where normally early evidence is existent, but there is studies in Saudi Arabia, in China, in South Africa, have all documented that financial education in preschool, at preschool level, can be very effective. It's not only AflaTot, not only AflaTot. There is more and more evidence in the scientific published literature which is providing this evidence. And for the few skeptics in the room, but I've seen many faces and I recognize many of you, so I know that you are completely convinced. Financial education for 5-year-olds? Yes. Very young children can be taught about the basic benefits and tools of sharing, savings, and purchase that will support good financial habits and practices as children, but that will also lead to better managed financial lives. Basically, what the research is showing is that if children who get these basic financial skills early in life are more successful financially in their life later as they grow up as adults. It's absolutely documented. Again, it's not only in the United States, in many other countries around the world, this is really solid evidence now. Okay, bringing it together, early childhood education for sustainable development. And then I really want to take it to AflaTot. We, as AflaTot, about 10 years ago, we developed the concept of early childhood education for sustainable development. And we initially tested that in a few countries. And I've seen some faces in the online room, and some of you were involved in that process. But basically, we tested the concept of combining environmental, social, and economic education together as sustainable development. And based on that, we developed the AflaTot manual, which was released in 2015, I think, or 16. And basically, AflaTot is a tool, it's a curriculum, but it's specifically a way to engage with children using a very active learning methodology. It's very child and playful. It has a family toolkit so that parents are being involved, and it really is a simple but extremely effective tool to reach children in many different places. The beauty of AflaTot is that you can conceptualize it to any local unique setting. And if you look at the pictures, you see pictures from the Ukraine, you see pictures from Sri Lanka, you see pictures from Palestine, you see pictures from Zambia, the Philippines, you name it. This is not just a nice idea of economic, social, and environmental education. There is actually a solid learning framework behind it. And there are two learning frameworks which we have used in AflaTot, and there is a new third one which I'll come to in a minute. First of all, there is an economic citizenship education for children and youth framework. And that framework, we will make the link available for you, or at least we will share with you if you're interested in the conceptual thinking behind financial education for preschool students. Secondly, we have the whole social emotional learning framework behind it from Kessel, which is also widely recognized and internationally used. On environmental education, as I mentioned, there is less evidence, but there hasn't been a comprehensive framework. And I'm happy to share with you that about 4 months ago, UNESCO released a new greening curriculum guidance framework, which has a specific framework for 5 to 8-year-olds on climate education, environmental education. Now, we did an initial review of what's in that curriculum framework compared to the other two curriculum frameworks, and we see that there is a very close, basically what is in the AflaTot framework very closely overlaps with what's in the greening curriculum. Having said that, there are specific pieces in the greening curriculum like greenhouse gases and carbon cycle, which are not in the AflaTot curriculum, which are at the moment being recommended as well. Okay, so that's AflaTot. What we did is, we are about to launch the new AflaTot curriculum, the revised curriculum. And as a contribution to the revision of the AflaTot curriculum, we did a review of all the evidence out there. We looked at studies, scientific articles, research reports. The majority of the studies we found were actually published in the scientific literature, but we also included reports from partners, evaluations of projects, etc. And ultimately, we found 28 studies, both qualitative and quantitative studies, from 14 countries. It's quite comprehensive. There was more evidence and more studies done than we were initially aware of. And interestingly enough, there's a very high presence of studies in Europe, Central Asia, as well as Indonesia. But you can see we have at least some evidence also from the other regions. The Middle East and North Africa is probably the area where we were not able to find information. But there was a lot out there. And what I would like to do with you is to share some of the highlights of that evidence. What is working, what's not working. And I'd like to zoom in first on the social skills. And in the initial period when we developed AflaTot, we did a pre and post intervention in 4 countries, and I'll come to the other countries, but this is a tool, a child observation tool before the intervention and after the AflaTot intervention. And we looked in the intervention and the observation tool at, does the child develop initiative, self-regulation, relationships with others, and other conduct problems. And what we found is that after, and there was, as I mentioned, a child observation tool, and about 20 minutes was spent with each of the children and the parents. And what we found is that there was a significant increase in initiative. There was a significant increase in self-regulation in the Philippines, also in relationships attachment. Where it was less conclusive was behavioral conduct. As you can see on the right side, there were still quite a significant number of children which were expressing behavioral behavior which was not which was hoped we would have seen a reduction of. So the absence of conduct problems was less affected by AflaTot in that area. Now, the study was also repeated in Ecuador by Children International, and in Honduras by Child Fund, in Fijosa, and in the Philippines also by Children International. And what we found is if you would combine the data set to make it even more robust of those 4 countries together, so we put all the children of the different interventions in one box, we found that overall there was a 90% increase in initiative among the children participating in AflaTot, 70% increase in relationships with others, 36% in self-regulation, and I'll come to that in a minute. And we saw also a reduction in conduct problems, but not as much as we had hoped. There's also a very interesting study in the Ukraine where they had a small experimental study where they compared children going through the AflaTot group with other children who were going to preschool but did not get AflaTot. And before the intervention, they compared, they did an assessment of the children, and they scored the children of having low, medium, and high social and financial skills. As you can see, before the intervention, only 10 or 15% in the AflaTot group had high level social financial skills. The majority was in the middle, and then there was a significant group of 5 to 7-year-olds in the Ukraine who had low financial skills. Then they did the intervention of AflaTot, and after AflaTot was implemented, there was if you look at the control group, so the children who did not get AflaTot, the situation remained the same. It's slightly better. It went from 10% high to 15% high. But what you see in the group which received AflaTot, the share of children who had low level went down significantly, and the percentage of children which had high level went up significantly. So what we could conclude is that AflaTot is making an impact in the social and financial skills among the children participating in the program. And it is really dedicated, attributable to the program, because other children who also aged did not, as they were getting older, improve their skills. Now, then I would like to move to the environmental skills. I have to be frank, we have done less measurement on the environmental skills than we have done on the social and the financial skills. But there are 2 concepts of environmental skills which are extremely important, and that's self-regulation and delaying gratification. And let me explain. If you want to change behavior among individuals to support environmental sustainability, individuals will need to require self-regulation and delay gratification of consumptive goals. So it's really important if you want to have a movement in a country to change behavior, and where there is a difference of the result as an individual vis-a-vis the result for the community. Do I continue to speed and drive in a car, or do I go electric without petrol? Those are decisions you have to make. And concepts of self-regulation and delayed gratification are very important there. I already mentioned self-regulation because it's also a social skill, but it's very much also an environmental skill. And the delayed gratification also had a significant improvement among the children which went through the AflaTot program in Ecuador, Honduras, and the Philippines. With that information, I'd like to move to the financial skills. Financial skills, we looked at a number of studies, and the first study is a very interesting one in Ecuador among children 6 to 7 years old. Before the AflaTot intervention, the children were asked, I'm giving you 5 coins. Tell us what you're going to do with it. And they had some options to choose from. And one of the options was to save. And what you can see is that nearly half of the children before the AflaTot program would not save even 1 coin. They basically would spend all the money immediately. After the AflaTot intervention, we saw quite a change. We see that the percentage of children which are not are planning to save is reduced significantly. It goes down from 47%, as you can see, the red is only 13%, and the majority is saving. They're not saving everything. They're finding a balance between what I'm going to use now and what I'm going to save later. But there is definitely a change in saving behavior among the children in Ecuador. There is another very interesting study in the Belarus. Belarus, before we had been in touch with the government of Belarus, the government had already decided that financial education should be a component of the preschool education curriculum. So they had developed a financial education element in the curriculum in preschool in Belarus. However, when they were about to roll this out, we got into touch with them, and they wanted to test to what extent is AflaTot an added value to the program they had developed themselves. So what you're comparing here is children which haven't gone through either the new government program or the new government program plus AflaTot. And I must say, in the AflaTot program, there was a very strong focus on also empowering teachers and empowering family members. So there was an extra effort to focus on the parents as well. And what did we see as a result of this change is that actually the financial behavior and the new curriculum of the government didn't make much change. Despite all the efforts that put into the new curriculum, the change in high-level financial literacy among the preschool children remained basically the same. However, the children which went through the AflaTot program, what you can see is that the percentage which had low-level financial education reduced significantly, and the children who had high-level financial economic literacy went up significantly. So ultimately, the government concluded that actually the AflaTot program is an added value and is more powerful to bring children of 5 to 7 year olds the basics about finance. And they decided, therefore, as a result of this study, to integrate AflaTot in the national curriculum. So I've shared with you, and there are many more studies, but I don't want to, I'm a numbers nerd, but I know some of you don't like too much statistics. There are other issues as well, but I do want to share one final statistics with you on specifically on the research, which is important. And then I have some more qualitative results to share with you as well. Because if you look at the overall AflaTot impact, how does it impact children in a school? And there is a very interesting study here done again in Ecuador, where there was an intervention for children who were about to go to preschool, to primary school. And there was an assessment to what extent is their physical, social, emotional, and cognitive development advanced enough that they can start learning reading and numeracy and literacy. And they were very concerned because they saw that the children in the preschool were not picking up and they were not developing. And actually, they brought in experts to look at a number of neurofunction areas of the children. And they identified 38 children which were very vulnerable and they were behind in their development, they felt. And indeed, the professionals who did the assessment on the 17 neurofunction areas found that in 14 of the 17 areas, the children were really behind in their development. They were not adequately stimulated and ready to go to primary school for early numeracy and literacy. Therefore, they decided to go for an 8-month intervention where every week these children went through a program which was based and developed on the AflaTot methodology. And as a result of that, as you can see, that the areas which were adequately stimulated increased significantly, and now 13 of the 14 and 13 of the 17 were adequately stimulated, and the 4 were just who weren't enough, were just below the threshold. So overall, the AflaTot activities were resulting in enhancing the basic skills acquisition and preparing children to be able to start learning reading, writing, and numeracy, which is very powerful and very impactful. And I think everybody working on AflaTot, especially in Ecuador, should be very proud of that. Now, what are the key characteristics of these programs? What we found is that there are 4 areas which are, and those of you who work on AflaTot are probably saying it's a no-brainer. We know that. What's new, Roland? But I do think it's important for all the participants to remind that. First of all, it's of course behind AflaTot is the very active learning methodology. The child-centered teaching is essential. Secondly, you really need to invest in the teachers, in building their capacity to roll out the AflaTot program and interact with the children in a meaningful way. Thirdly, and that was probably the most powerful finding, is that the involvement of families is essential. You need to bring in the parents. The children benefit from the involvement of the parents, but the parents are also benefiting from their engagement in the program. And then finally, the local contextualization. You really need to adapt, adjust, contextualize, localize the AflaTot content to the unique situation where the program is being rolled out with the children. And just to highlight a few studies, this was a study, and sorry, it's not a very attractive slide, but this was a qualitative study. Actually, no, they did also a quantitative assessment on among teachers. They took a group of teachers and they were asked to use the AflaTot social and financial education methodology, but they were not trained in the methodology before. And then there was an intervention group. So it was a group which was not getting, here in the study they call it loose parts media, but it meant the use of a number of the different AflaTot methodologies. And the teachers which did not go through the training were not improving in teaching the children, but and there was observation by pedagogy experts in the room on how are the teachers interacting with the children. And they saw that there was a significant increase, and that ranged from 50 to 65% compared to before the intervention. The teachers and the kids were much better interacting with each other, and as a result of that, the children were learning better. Secondly, is the involvement of parents. In Indonesia, there was also a test trial where they did again 2 groups, a group which only got AflaTot children, and a group where there was a real investment, engagement of using the family toolkit of AflaTot. So the parents were getting an activity book, they were taking it home, they were writing in it, the teachers were responding to the activity book. So it was intense, but as a result of that, they saw that the impact among the children where the parents were having an active role was significantly higher than in the program where there was only AflaTot. There was still progress, but the involvement of parents really made a big deal. And basically the researchers are saying half of the effectiveness of the impact in the results in Indonesia at the time was because of the role of the parents. So it highlights the importance of the parents in the AflaTot program. And then I think this is the final research finding, but very important, is there is also intergenerational learning. And there was a study in Slovakia, and we have strong partners in Slovakia, and they did a qualitative study in 6 preschools with a high representation of Roma children. And what in the qualitative study, they really found that those parents, they really want to engage. They want to be positive examples to their children if they have the confidence to interact with the children. So you really need to take these parents in the journey of AflaTot. They also found that that the parents were learning a number of concepts from the young children, which was facilitated by the school. So with the activity books and with the interaction with their children and discussing what they learned in school, the parents were learning themselves as well. And we also realized that the parents who felt confident about the AflaTot program were overall more confident to engage with their children and spending more time with the children as a result of the AflaTot program. We also found 2 studies in Indonesia and Ukraine with big discussions on local contextualization. And here on the slide, you see an example of the AflaTuni, which has been pre and post localization in Indonesia. You can see that suddenly he is a young Indonesian fellow. And what the studies both in Indonesia and Ukraine highlighted is that in the qualitative study, that the localization of the whole material is extremely important to have successful rollout of AflaTot. So what are the key points? And I'm wrapping up here. What are the key points I would like you to take away from this presentation? First of all, when you talk about early childhood education for sustainable development, you really need to talk about social, environmental, but also economic. At the moment, all the focus is on climate education, but you really need to combine the social and the economic with the environmental. Secondly, overall general research, not only research from AflaTot, has found that early childhood education, and specifically these are thorough scientific studies, not only from the United States, but also from low and middle income countries, is that children which go through an EC, early childhood education program with sustainable development elements, they will have a positive long-term impact in all three domains. So they will be more successfully financially, they will be more environmentally mindful, and they will have better social skills as they grow up as adults. The studies of AflaTot really find a positive impact. I hope you have seen with the few studies I've shared with you that there is quite some impressive and wide varied research, and it's showing that it's making an impact in all three domains, the social, the environmental, and the economic domains. Essential elements to consider when you want to implement an AflaTot program is really focus on the active learning methodology, invest in the teachers, involve the parents, and do take your time to locally contextualize it. Of course, this is not as much as research as we had hoped, but it is much more than we actually thought there was, but more research is needed. And then, some of the research questions we have identified, and there are probably many more questions, but we need to better understand how the new greening curriculum from UNESCO fits into the AflaTot framework. We already saw that there's a lot already in the AflaTot framework, but we need to have another assessment on that. We saw that a decrease in conduct behavior in the studies in the beginning of the social sphere was not as much as we had hoped. So we need to do more research how the new AflaTot curriculum, and we hope that it has more impact on the conduct behavior, but we need to measure that. We need to do more work on inclusive education in AflaTot. And ideally, we would follow these children a little bit longer, so a longer term impact of AflaTot, but that is normally always quite expensive to research. And in AflaToon, we are doing more and more interventions on financial education for young parents, so that they take better care of their children and use the money wiser for their children, aside from the AflaTot program. And it would be really important to see if there's a connection and an interface between the financial education for parents program at AflaToon and the AflaTot program. So it would be interesting to do more research there. And then more understanding about the added investments in both teacher training as well as in parent involvement on how the programs evolves and how the programs can further be improved. We have this evidence brief and it's uploaded on the internet. And I'm really happy that the colleagues in the communications department have put it on the internet, so it's available for everyone. All the studies are there, the resources, if you want to read about the studies yourself, all the links to all the studies are available, and the detailed overview is also available. And then finally, of course, the excitement, and some of you are probably very keen to hear when, but in the first quarter of 2025, based on this evidence review, based on all the lessons learned from all the partners in the AflaToon network who are and have been implementing AflaTot, we will be bringing out a brand new AflaTot manual, which has been further improved based on all the lessons learned. And hopefully very soon you will hear more about the launch of the new AflaTot manual. Let me stop here. And maybe Magda, back to you.
Thank you so much, Roland. Thank you for wrapping everything for us. I can see one question in the chat. I also shared the link to AflaTot evidence brief and to AflaTot background paper. So you have in the chat the links that can lead you there. You can also reshare with everyone. I will read the question. How many partners are currently implementing AflaTot? Can you share the challenges they have encountered during the implementation?
On the top of my head, but maybe if there is a colleague in AflaTot online can correct me, but I think it was about 35 partners in 28 countries, around that figure. The challenges, first of all, there remain financial challenges. I mean, many of the organizations are working on a shoestring budget. They're trying everything to and are very successful. The time to train the teachers is one of the other challenges which we identified, that to allocate time, specifically if it's being organized in government or local government preschool education facilities, to find the time to train the teachers is sometimes a challenge. For those who have successful, I think I have highlighted that specifically. It's really the local contextualization is absolutely essential. In every country, it really is different. The involvement of the parents is an extremely important activity. That's one of the most important things you can do to make it successful. And what were the other two items I had said? Investing in the teachers is another one, which is really important, which was also one of the challenges, as I mentioned.
Okay, you covered about the second part of the question as well. Thank you so much. I don't see any other questions. Maybe anyone, if someone has a question, please raise your hand. Or a comment.
I see some people are implementing AflaTot yourself. Is there anything you feel resonates or something you think is missing from a challenge you have, which we didn't mention? If I may ask. No? All
Maybe
good?
yeah, from our colleagues worth sharing.
Roland, in the chat, our colleague Anna is confirming the number of partners and organizations who use the AflaTot curricula and the total number of children reached. So people can check the chat.
Yes, I will read it. In 2023, AflaTot was implemented in 29 organizations, reaching almost 50,000 children. This is the number.
And I do want to compliment everyone, because there are some people here in the meeting who have done this research. Of course, we as AflaTot have compiled it, but the research, most of the research was done by our partners in the network, and I want to compliment them for doing that research. It really helps further improving the entire AflaTot curriculum. Some of the research was very innovative, and as I mentioned, a lot of it has been published in the scientific literature. It's not just a report here or there, so it's accepted by academics as important.
Okay, I don't see any questions here. I do have one comment from our colleagues from NATCO. One strategy we are exploring for next year is to partner with the local government units that manage the daycare centers. The goal is to have the program adapted by the local government so that sustainability can be assured. Any comments on that? Any further questions maybe? Nancy?
Thank you, Roland, for the very nice and very fruitful presentation, because it will help us to reach more for AflaTot, actually more organizations or even the local governments. For the challenges, I think the main challenge for the NGOs is the fundraising issue, because somebody asked about this. The other one is the stability of the political situation in some countries. MENA region, as an example, it's challenging, quite challenging for now to reach out to certain countries. We have like 8 countries under conflicts. That's why maybe the basic education sometimes is not reachable for children all over some countries, or in the refugee camps or displaced areas. The other thing or the challenges is the donor themselves are setting plans for certain regions, for certain areas or countries. So the early childhood is one of the minimum importance to them, or the less important issues to start support or fund for this. Those are the main challenges from my point of view. The other thing is the capacity of the organizations, because you might have like some experts and youth, adolescents, trainers, but in the early childhood, you will find less organizations that focused or the mandate of them or the core business, name it. You will have less experience in this area. Thank you. This is from my mapping in the MENA region. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. That is a very good point. So we have one more question from Nepal. And a comment. In Nepal, it can implement and apply for the children. Is it possible to apply in the remote areas schools?
Yeah, I would like to. I'm going to answer the question on the Nepal, but I first also want to come back to Nancy, because I just realized that there is one finding I didn't share with you. You know, I like my numbers. And there was a study in the Balkan, in 4 countries in Southeastern Europe, where they had an AflaTot program, and also with the parents again, who were part of the intervention to see how it impacted them, on engaging with children of different backgrounds, and that is a Roma background, disability background, or other children. And what they found is that the children which went through the AflaTot program was a very powerful intervention to get these children interact with each other. And the conclusion of the study was actually that it was a very useful peace-building tool for young children. So maybe that's something, while I understand that the region in the Middle East and North Africa at the moment is very unstable, specifically in the Middle East, it is also an advice to maybe we should consider using AflaTot with the stakeholders when we talk about nation building and post-conflict as a powerful intervention for displaced children. Magda, on the other question about Nepal, I think, can you use it in remote areas? Absolutely. I think one of the reasons why people like AflaTot, because it's a low resource cost. I mean, many of the partners are working on shoestring budgets, but they're still able to roll out AflaTot because you don't need very fancy tools. The activities are very easy to do with pieces from nature, etc. So it is definitely replicable and scalable at rural community level.
Thank you, Roland. I would like to invite our colleague Sarah Ghazal to comment on AflaTot because she's working on that actually. This is our colleague from educational team. Sarah?
Hi, thank you very much, Magda, and thank you, Roland, for the presentation. So I would like to share with you all some of the new features that we are including in the revised AflaTot curricula. Actually, as Roland mentioned, so we conducted a needs assessment and we gathered feedback from our partners who are implementing AflaTot. So in the new revised version, you will find more environmental topics. So we were asked to add topics that are considered prerequisites to climate change. So we did include a full module on environmental topics. We also were asked to add more lessons related to working together as a community to reach a common goal and find solutions to challenges. So this topic was also added. We also tried to find different ways to engage parents in a more efficient way, because we learned that some parents were not attending sessions that were prepared through the AflaTot session. So we tried to create sessions where parents and children will be together, learning together. That's also a new feature. And of course, the content became more inclusive. So we provided guidelines to help facilitators on how to adapt and contextualize the content in a better way. So those are few of the new features that you will find in the revised content. So those are a few things that I wanted to share with you. And we're so excited to have the new version very soon.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your comments. I saw a hand raised from Bita Ibrahimi. Do you want to ask a question? You're muted. We cannot hear you.
Sorry, and thank you for the opportunity. When you mentioned a lot of surveys that have been done in different countries, I think that it would be great if we can have access to this investigation or even to the survey forms, you know, because it will help us to estimate about the AflaTot result in our country. Can we have access to some of these surveys, the form of them, or an English version of them?
Yeah, we have, as you have noticed, a lot of the reason why it's quite a unique study is because many of the studies were published in the scientific literature, but not in English. Normally, people only look at English literature, and we really went out the extra mile. As I mentioned, we found articles in Bahasa Indonesia, in Ukraine, and other languages, and we really needed to translate it ourselves. So we actually translated the documents in order to analyze the information from either the articles or the study reports, and we should be able to make that available. We have all the links. There are two documents which we have made out of this exercise. The first one is an 8-page glossy evidence brief, which you can use if you want to convince a policymaker to say, okay, but these are A, B, C, show. But there is also a detailed report with all the studies, with all the data, with all the links, etc., also available. So there are two reports available, and they're both accessible on the internet. And I think Magda and Elisabetta have put a link in the notes here, so you can access them. But if there is any feeling that something is missing, feel free to reach out, because we've really tried to do everything to make it available to you.
Thank you so much, Roland. I don't see any questions and comments anymore.
I thought that Induni had her hand up. No? Okay. What's your Nessie hand?
Yes, this is Nessie hand. Okay. So let's wrap up. Thank you so much, everyone, for this amazing participation. We had 50 people today listening to our new evidence brief and wrap up. I shared the link. I encourage you also to follow our social media, because we are going to share more posts about it, about the content, about the materials we have. And of course, to follow our social media also to see how many new materials we are now refreshing and resharing. Even next week, we are going to launch Russian version of AflaTin, so the next language version of our amazing curricula. I can see your daughter Hazel. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Roland, for a great presentation. And I hope to see you soon during our next webinars. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you.